Hey there, welcome back. So today we're going to take a look at how we can change the player object from one game object to another. And we're going to do that in a very simple way just by pressing the select button in this case. So I'm just going to start as usual by creating a new project. And I'm just going to call this project Mini Drac. And I'm going to choose the Metroidvania module. So, and I'm just going to save this game as well. Mini Drac. Alright, so I have made some assets for this test project, and as usual you can find the link in the description. So I have downloaded those assets here. So like before, we've done this so many times, so I'm gonna do this really quickly now. So I've just created an empty project, so I'm just gonna start by going to NESmaker and my graphic assets folder and Mini Drac, and I'm just gonna select all the files in there and delete them. Then I go to my assets folder, go to my graphics folder, select all the files in there, copy them, and then in the graphic assets folder in NESmaker for my game Mini Drac, I'm just gonna paste the files in there. So now I have the graphics. Next I'm gonna go to NESmaker, palettes, all palettes. I'm gonna right click and choose import, and then I need to go to my assets folder and I'm going to choose all palettes. Then it's the monster palettes, so right click all monster palettes, import all monster palettes from the assets folder. Next, game objects, right click game objects, import all game objects, again from the Mini Drac assets folder. I'm going to choose game objects, open. Same for monsters, monster graphics bank, graphics bank 0 monsters, and I'm gonna choose monster up here, import all monsters, monster objects. Alright, and now monster groups. I'm just gonna create a monster group called monsters 1, and I'm gonna select this blob and save. Then I need to go to my overworld there. Right click, import both maps, yes. And I'm gonna choose maps here in my assets folder. Now I'm gonna go to the first screen here. And I'm just gonna place the player right there. And I'm also gonna set up the monster groups for these screens. So screen info, day monsters, day monster group, monsters 1. I'm gonna do that for all the screens, just so that we have a few monsters in this game. So like I said, we've done this so many times before, so I'm not gonna explain everything in detail. You're just gonna have to we're just gonna set up a quick test game here now. So just a few more screens, setting up the monster group, and just I think one or two more, and then we are done. So yeah, last one. All right. So there we go. Now we have the map or the screens, all the monsters. Now I'm going to go to, actually before we import the input scripts, I'm going to go to my assets folder, my Mini Drac export assets folder, and I'm going to copy a file from input scripts here. This one called changePlayer. I'm going to copy that from the assets folder, and then I'm going to go back to my NESmaker folder, to game engine data, routines, base 45, game, mod, metroidvania, and inputs. And I'm just gonna paste this new input script called changePlayer in there. Alright, so now I'm gonna go back to NESmaker, and here in my input editor, I'm gonna right click, import input links. And I'm gonna choose inputs right there and open. So I've set this up with the default NESmaker scripts apart from the one we just copied. So it should work fine. So if I go to Overworld now and I test the game, I should have a working, very simple working test game now. So let's see. All right. Yep. We have mini Dracula walking around here, and we have a few monsters. Perfect. Now I should actually be able to transform right now because of our new input script. So if I press the select button now, I should be able to transform from mini Dracula into a bat. So I'm gonna press select now. And there we go. Now I'm a bat. The problem is that right now I can't move up or down. I want this bat to move up, down, left, right. And I can't do that right now. So we need to do something else. Now this is not related directly to the ability to change the player. This is just the fact that I want my bat to have slightly different movement than Mini Dracula. Mini Dracula is just standard normal platforming, move left, right, jump. I want this bat to be able to fly. So the default Metroidvania module does not support up and down movement like that, only jumping. But if we go back to the assets folder, there is a file here called links. And there are two links here. The second link here, that's the input script that we just copied. That is to say, I modified this one slightly. So it's not 100% the same one, but it's pretty much the same one as this one. So if you want to take a closer look at, by the way, it's made by CalFlyheight. So if you want to take a closer look at that, you can go to that address on the NESmaker forum. But we need to add up and down movement right now. And that's this first link called Vertical Movement AI for Enemies in Metroidvania Project. It's made by Kevin81. So I'm going to copy this link now. Then I'm just going to go to the NESmaker forum. And here we go. So Kevin81's script is just, I think this is the second post here. Yeah. So here we go. So we just copy this thing, vertical movement, this code here. Let's copy that code. And back to NESmaker. And we go to project settings, script settings. Then we go all the way down to where it says handle physics. Do handle physics. So select that one and click edit. Here in the physics script, we need to go all the way down to the end to where it says done with gravity. So I'm just gonna paste the code from the forum that I just copied. I'm gonna paste it right below done with gravity. So it looks like that. All right, then I save the physics script, and now we should be able to move up and down. So let's see if that works. So this only applies to the bat. And we're going to take a look at why in just a second. So now we have normal platform movement. Yep, normal platform movement. But now I can transform into the bat, and I can move left and right and also up and down. So, and of course you can see that the bat moves a lot faster than Mini Dracula. So here's the speed of Mini Dracula. Whoa, we got a little bug there. But the bat moves much faster. So, but of course this bat is now the player object. So there you could see that the door right here, that's a normal warp tile. And of course, since the bat is the player object now, it can interact with whatever the normal player can interact with. So this is a very simple but very cool way to add some additional features to your game. Now there are of course a lot of things you could do to improve this. So for example, the default NESmaker scripts for moving up and down, they set the directions, the facing directions to up and down as well. So you can see when I fly left, I'm facing left, but if I move down, it looks like he's facing right now. And the same thing if I move up, it also looks like he's moving right, because the up and down movement, like I said, changes the facing direction, and it changes it to up and down, but this object is not set up with up and down animations. So therefore it's going to choose the default, which is facing right. But as you can see, apart from that, we do have a pretty cool thing here where, oh, a lot of lag. But we do have a cool thing here where we can change the player back and forth like that. And you can see that it adds a little flavor to the game. So I think it's pretty cool. But let's take a look at the objects here. So there's really nothing special actually. So the Mini Dracula here, he's just like any other player object you would set up in a platform game. So he has idle animations, walk, jump and hurt animations. And if you go to actions over here, he does not have ignore gravity on any of those actions. But if we go to the player bat, the next game object here, maybe I should change the color to a little brighter just so we can see right now. So this bat, like I said, it's also set up. If we go to object details and we go to details here, it's set up very similar to the other player object, Mini Dracula. It's still persistent, it's still a player, so we have to check both of these checkboxes. Now I set health to 3. So the health, yeah, there are a lot of things you could do with the health. If you want to transfer, or if you want to use the same health for both objects or not, or maybe you want different game objects to have different health. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do there. We're not going to take a look at that right now, but I set the same health for this guy as for the other guy. But the important part here is that we have persistent and player checked for this bat, since he's also going to be a player. But here I have a different max speed than the other player object. And also in this case it's important that I've checked ignore gravity for this action step, because we're going to move going to be moving up and down, and even when we're moving sideways, I don't want him to fall down. So I don't want this bat to use gravity. So it's really nothing special, but you just need to have two you need to have two game objects that you can switch between. I'm sorry. Other than that, it's really nothing special. But let's take a look at the input script, the changePlayer input script. So as you can see, it's not really a big script. Yeah, let's just go through it very quickly now. We start by this thing that you've probably seen before, TXA PHA. Transfer X to A, so transfer the contents of whatever is in the X register. Transfer that to the accumulator, or copy that to the value to the accumulator. So if you have number 5 in X and we do this TXA, then we copy 5 to the accumulator. And then PHA, push whatever's in the accumulator onto what we call the stack, the system stack, which is basically just an area, a safe area in the RAM of the NES, and we just place one value after the other in a stack, just like you would do with a stack of dinner plates. And we push them on like that, and when we do that, later on we need to pull them from the stack, and then you pull from the top one after the other. Of course, when you're using these things, it's important that you do things in the correct order. So here I say push to the stack at the beginning, and then I pull down here. If I start pulling from the stack in the middle here, then this would crash. We would get something else down here. So we need to be aware that when we're pushing things to the stack, we need to be aware that at some point we need to pull it back from the stack. So the whole stack thing, it's a topic in and of itself, but hopefully you understand why we use this. The basic idea is that we back up our X, the value in X temporarily, because we're going to load something else into X here. Here we are loading X with player 1 object. Then down here, when we're done, we say pull back from the stack, transfer A to X again. So back down here, we're back to whatever the X was at the beginning. So just back up what the X value, and then when we're done, we restore it back to whatever it was. So we can do whatever we want with the X value in here. Now in this case, we're saying load X with player 1 object. Maybe it was not necessary in this case, because most likely we already have the player object in X when we get to this point, since this is an input script. But let's not worry about that right now. Let's just continue looking at the input script here. So we load X with the player 1 object. Then we're going to do something that we've done a lot of times before. For the player object, which is in X right now, we get the X position of the player. We store that in the temporary variable temp A. We get the Y position, store that in temp B, and we get the object direction of the player object, store that in temp C. And since this is a scrolling game, we also need to get the object screen for the player, because we need to know what screen he was on. And we store that in temp D. So we have 4 temporary variables here that we're going to use later on. Basically what we're doing here, we're grabbing some very basic information. Where is the player right now? And we're storing those values into temporary variables. So Then down here we say load A with object type, comma X. Now object type is these. So we start here with the first one, which is the default player object. So that's game object 0, game object 1, game object 2, game object 3, game object 4, and so on. And when you get down here to monsters, the first one is game object 16. Then the next one will be game object 17, game object 18, and so on. So it just continues on from the game objects up here. So game objects are just the objects in this list. So why are we doing that? Well, we want to check what object type is the game right now. Is the player right now. And then we say branch if not equal. We could have said compare with 0, but we never have to write compare with 0. It's unnecessary because when we say branch if not equal, that means branch if it's not 0. So let's look at this. Let's imagine that game object right now is 0. Load object type, branch if not equal. Well, it is 0, so we can't branch. So we're not going to branch down here. We're just going to continue in here. So and game object 0, that means that the player is this guy right now. So then we go down here. Then we say load A with 1, which is the player bat. Game object 1. Alright, and we store that into temp1, the variable temp1. And then we say jump down to continue change player into. Yeah. So we go jump load A with 1, store that into temp1, and we jump down here. Then we say destroy object. Destroy whatever object was in X. Now that was this guy. So we're going to destroy him right now. But immediately after that, we're going to create a new object. Create object on screen. And what object are we going to create? Well, we're going to create whatever we put into temp1, the variable temp1. And in this case, we put the number 1 in there. Because now we want to create this object. So, and this is the X position, the Y position. So for the X and Y position, we use the values from the temporary variables that we stored up here. So remember, we had this first game object and we took all the basic position values from that guy, stored those in the temporary variables, and now we are using them to create this new object, because we want this new object to be created at the exact same place that the last game object was, that the last player object was. So we created the same X position, same Y position. We create whatever object we put into temp1, object number. In this case, we're going to start at action step 0. That's what this means. And temp D over here, that's the object screen. So we need to make sure that this bat is created. Let's say we have started to scroll, so we have gotten 2 screens over to the right, for example. The bat needs to appear on that same screen. So this thing needs to be seamless to the to whoever is going to play this game. So it's a basic create object on screen thing, but we just need to make sure that we know what values we put in here, because we want this new player object to appear at the exact same place as the last one. And then we say store X. So when you create you use this macro, create object on screen, it's going to store a number into X. And we don't have to go into detail about how that works, but it basically it gets whatever object number is free right now. When you start a new game, the player object is always going to be 0, because the player is the first object that's created. After that, we don't know. So that's why we say store X into player1 object. So at this point, after creating this new player object, player1 object might not be 0 anymore. But that's okay, we don't have to worry about that. But we do have to store X into player1 object. And we also store X into cam object. That's just how NESmaker works. We need to have X into both of those. Then we say load A with temp C. What's temp C? Well, it's the object direction that we took from the first game object up here. So the direction that the player was facing and the direction he was moving in. So we grab that and we store that into the object direction of this new object. So if Mini Dracula is facing that direction, we destroy Mini Dracula and we create this bat. We want him to face the same direction. And that's the whole thing really. So then we get down here and we restore the X register, just to be sure. It doesn't hurt to do it like this. So anyway, that's it. We have destroyed the old player object. We created a new one, and now we're ready to go. So we just RTS and we're done. But now we are this game object. This is the player right now. If we press select again, then the same thing is going to happen. We get the X and Y position, the screen is on, the direction. But when we get down here, when we're loading the object type, the object type right now is not 0 anymore. This is game object 0. The game object for this is 1. 0, 1. So now we are game object 1, game object number 1. That means that when we get to here, load object type, branch if not equal. Remember, branch if not equal, branch if it's not 0. So go down here. Right, so we go down there. This time we load A with 0, which is the player drac. So then the first player object. And we store that into temp1. And that's the object that will be created next time. So we go from this guy to this guy. And we can switch back and forth like that as much as we want, of course. So this is a very basic script. It's really nice that you can do a cool thing like this with a small script like this. And like I said, we haven't looked at how how we're gonna handle health, anything like that. This is just changing the player object from one thing to another. And of course, you can modify that however you want. So, basically that's it. And of course, the only reason we added this vertical movement in the beginning of the video was just because I wanted this bat to fly up and down. And before we leave today, let me also just show you what I was talking about when the bat moved up and down. It was always facing right. So if you look at the bat here, go to object details. So you can see that down and up are both set up with the fly right animation. That's why he was facing right when we were moving up and down. The input script says, let's see. The input script for moving up and down are set up like this. It says change facing direction to face up when we're moving up. If you don't want that, you can just comment out these lines. You don't need these lines. If you just want the player to move up and down, you can just comment out the 3 lines after start moving. And then he won't face right all the time. He will just move up and down and not change the facing direction. That's just a little tip for you. So, well, that's it. That's how you can change the player object in your NESmaker game. So I hope you have a lot of fun with this, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.